We are talking about the top 10 Switch exclusives that we would recommend for a new Switch owner, or anyone if you don't own some of these games.
This is the collaborative list of Switch exclusives here from the
Yep.
Star Road Podcast.
Yep.
I'm pretty excited about this because usually we list off our own things and we talk about them. We're going to be listing these together.
Yep.
And we're going to be on the same page, laying it down.
Pretty much across the board.
Across the board.
So I'm going to kick us off, Sterling. No honorable mention today because of the nature of the list. Everything on here is ranked, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about.
We're doing the episode 30 special 10.
Yep. So number 10 on the list is Golf Story. Now, this is a game that you put me onto for quite a while before I actually purchased it, but as soon as I did, I fell in love with it. And it's one of the only games on this list that aren't either from Nintendo or Nintendo adjacent as far as a major developer, right? I look at the rest of these games and I see no other indie games on the list.
Golf Story stands alone in this list.
Golf Story stands alone with the big boys.
It really, truly does.
It's worth purchasing if you are a Switch owner. It doesn't... Obviously, if you hate golf, this is not the game for you. If you're lukewarm on golf, I would give it a try because it is an engaging game to me, whether you like golf or not.
It's just so much more than golf.
It really is.
This was just from a former new owner of a Switch, new adopter. Mm-hmm. This was the second game I owned on Switch. Super Mario Odyssey, then Golf Story.
Yep.
And I couldn't have been happier.
Yeah, man.
So the recommendation
can't recommend it enough.
Really, truly.
But let's talk about number 9, Sterling.
You want to talk about number 9s? How about Luigi's Mansion 3 to keep the Halloween hype alive?
Yep. This is a big game, man. I have not played any other Luigi's Mansions, full disclosure. However, everything you've told me indicates that this is pretty much the definitive Luigi's Mansion experience from a feature and experience standpoint. Would you agree with that?
I agree. I am completely nostalgic for the GameCube one. Mm-hmm. And that flat 3D we talk about, that's hitting every single note.
Absolutely.
But Luigi's Mansion 3 innovates the series, brings it to a whole new height, and not just that. I think to this day it really truly is the true realization of what the Switch alone by itself can graphically put out.
Mm-hmm.
It is a beautiful game.
Definitely.
I really don't think I can recall any title on the Switch that looks as good as it.
I'm inclined to agree.
I'm serious, man. The one thing that was really keeping my mind occupied whenever I first launched it, which is funny, this was last Halloween. That was my big hype, in the midst of lockdown and everything. Luigi's Mansion 3 came out on Halloween, and I had been looking forward to that release for months, man.
Mm-hmm.
And then you wound up picking it up, and you and your fiance had a fantastic time with it.
Yeah, I really think we're almost done with the game. Like, I feel like we have progressed quite far in the story and into the point where the boss fights are actually difficult. And so I feel like that means we've got to be getting close to the end.
Yeah, that's one that me and my girl spent a lot of time playing together. And that's a big reason that I wanted it on the list is the co-op functionality.
Unbelievable.
It is so user-friendly for someone to just pick up a controller and dive right in. The Guigi implementation is just spot on.
To the point where you want to be Guigi. Most co-op games, the second player is an afterthought. Something like Odyssey, where you play as Cappy, is novel, but it's not a full experience.
Or like Bowser Jr. on Bowser's Fury. Like, you want to play as Mario, but like Bowser Jr. will do.
But on Luigi's Mansion, you're happy, like you get the same functionality more or less, or at least the same amount of functionality out of both characters. They do slightly different stuff, but it's awesome.
Yeah, there's just something satisfying about rolling around, being basically the same with the same task, helping each other tackle it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's perfect.
It's wonderful.
Whether you have someone to play Switch with or not, I think Luigi's Mansion 3 is more than suitable for the list.
I agree.
Happy Halloween.
Number 8, Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, this game, it has been controversial for various reasons. I think for someone who is getting a Switch for the first time, whether they're a Pokemon fan or not, it's going to be worth playing, or at least checking out. I say that because I feel like they introduced a lot of elements in this game that do uh, make it easier for someone to get into the game, right? They kind of try to teach you about type matchups and stuff like that pretty significantly, much more than obviously what you would get in one of the older Pokemon games. And it was kind of memey when the game came out because everyone is a Pokemon diehard, but that stuff does make a difference for new players. You know what I mean? So I think that this game, it's a great introduction to the franchise if you're a returning player. I mean, it's a great story, and especially with the content they added in the DLC, there's quite a bit to do in the game. So I highly recommend it, especially if you can get it on sale. I imagine you can probably pick up a physical of this on eBay used for reasonable. I haven't checked, but I would imagine so.
Yeah, bargain hunting aside, I feel very partial to the game, to the point of wanting to recommend it just off the cuff.
Mm-hmm.
The I often wonder what it would be like to be a child and that be our Pokemon Blue. That be our Gen 1, our first foray into Pokemon. And, I wouldn't have it any other way than how we had it, Tyler. I'll be honest with you.
I agree.
But I also feel like it would be pretty nice to experience the enjoyment that this game would provide as an introduction.
Mm-hmm.
And that we're adults here, but you got to think about the kids, man.
I agree. That's what I was really getting at.
And I'm totally there with you. I mean, this is something. It's what Nintendo does best. It's all ages fun, man. And I've clocked almost 300 hours on this thing on Shield, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. It may not have the couch co-op accessibility that some of these games have, but that's not necessarily a function that all games are intended to have.
No. And I do like that they added, they have a pretty robust online functionality with this game.
Definitely. They kind of made it, and they started to, they got the formula down pretty good from where they started with like X and Y.
Definitely.
With kind of like the social media style online.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we're here for it anyway because we get to do what we used to do with link cables, but just so seamless. I mean, we just set a link code and we're in.
Yep.
It's very easy for you and I to get on there and connect. And suddenly we get that feeling that we got when we were sitting next to each other with Game Boys linked up.
Absolutely.
Now that's selfish reasoning for recommending the game, but overall it hits on many key points we brought up in our discussion today. I mean, how much have we raved about the music?
Incredible. I mean, it's really up there as far as music for a Pokemon game.
People have their gripes about the direction of the series, but I think one thing we can say is if you're going to modernize Pokemon music, they certainly did it correctly.
I agree.
Certainly. So Pokemon.
I'm excited to hear what some of the renditions in Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl sound like.
Oh man, and that's another.
Because that game, that fourth gen like DS music, that hits different. Some of the songs from that game are absolutely iconic,
Definitely. And DS is something I could have brought up earlier. I've mentioned before, I love that clay flat shit DS 3D. That
Yep.
is just
And
where I
I'm actually happy
exist.
that they stayed true to that with the design of the sprites on Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl.
Yeah, they got
That's
a
something we'll talk about more, probably 2 podcasts from now, I think is when the game will be out, which is pretty exciting.
yes. Let's admit it, Tyler. If it was that time now, they'd be on this list.
Oh, absolutely. I
Uh,
mean, probably.
that's a big foresight and a big prediction, but I really
Yeah,
could dare to say, and we talked about that earlier.
definitely. But let's get into number 7, bro.
Number 7 is a pretty recent one, but a very
Newest game
deserving
on our
one.
list, surely.
Metroid Dread. This is something that, let's say, and we can say the same thing for everything on this list. Let's say this was a launch title.
Hmm.
Let's say it came bundled. I think that this hits all the key points to show off the Switch.
I agree, and I think even, the fact that it was released at the same time as the OLED Switch is not an accident. And the fact
Not
that
at
that's how
all.
they were advertising the OLED Switch was not an accident.
And I think the marketing is a match made in heaven. I almost can't imagine another game besides Dread being on that OLED screen and all of this promotional material we see.
Hmm.
It shows. You see Luigi's Mansion. We talk about the graphics in that. That's fully just the whole thing is 3D environment in every direction. This is 3D but side scroller. But when you see the cinematics of this thing, if you saw no side scroller gameplay, you would not know what to think this game even was.
You would think it was Prime.
You would think it was Prime, and that really says a lot.
Yeah.
The graphics on this game are incredible. The control, honestly, some of the best control on the system. I mean, that's really hard to narrow down because you think about things like Odyssey and the gratuity you get from just playing Odyssey. Doesn't it feel great to just control Mario in that game?
Yeah.
I feel like Metroid Dread hits on something like that, but in an even bigger way, because they're capable of doing it in a side scroller.
Hmm.
You almost feel like you're in a 3D plane. You have that much control, and Samus feels more powerful than ever. But this is a great starting game if someone were to just get a Switch.
Yeah. You said it's pretty challenging, so
And it's very
keep that in
challenging.
mind.
Absolutely. I could definitely see some rage quitting happening, but if you're a
It's
true...
also the type of game that would make you get better.
Definitely. I feel like if you play this and you have to face these Emmys and suddenly you play a Metroidvania, because let's not forget, I mean, Metroid created a genre.
Hmm.
You play these, a Metroidvania where everything's a bit more procedural, you're going to have a much better time after you've experienced the dread of this game, So it was a dead ringer for the list, man, as new as it is. I can't wait to put more time on it, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think that one's going to be on my Christmas list as well. That's the perfect game for it.
Well, the demo needs to be on your download after this podcast list.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure.
Number 6 on our list, Mario Golf Super Rush. Now, we were on the fence about having 2 golf games on this list, were we not?
We were, but the more time passes, the better I feel about it.
Yeah, I think that Golf Story is a must-own game. If, it's a must-own game, especially for the price. Even not on sale, it's usually $20, right? So, and it goes on sale
I think it's
frequently.
15. I think we talked about that.
$15,
Yeah.
man. That's unbelievable. So, especially in that context, Golf Story is a must-own. Super Rush, totally different. I mean, it's a Mario sports game. If you've ever played a Mario sports game, you know what it's about. And that's all I really need to tell you, because it hits that Mario sports satisfying feeling that we could spend the whole today's discussion topic could have just been Mario sports themed.
It
We
truly
would have
could
had
have.
just as much to talk about.
Yep.
Because there's something so satisfying about walking out onto a golf course with Mario and driving the ball. I mean, that in and of itself is worth it, but the game is mechanically quite good. There are some quirky elements, there are some graphical elements that at times feel a little strange. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat that, but mechanically, the game is absolutely marvelous. And I will say the introduction and the addition of the online ranked ladder has given the game a whole new life for me personally because I really love the way they implemented it. Suiting up for 3 holes and just going and playing against 3 random people, and whoever wins wins. I mean, that's incredibly simple and effective. Um, but this one is going to be good for the whole family as well. I mean, we have played together with our fiancés, and they were both able to pick it up pretty quickly, which I thought was pretty impressive. Not having, I know at least mine has never played a golf game before, and I imagine it's intuitive enough that they were able to get the hang of it and everything.
The concept of a golf game is something I had to cozy my girl up to as well.
Yeah.
But quickly, I found her asking, "You mind leaving Mario Golf out, and just in case I feel like playing it?" And she certainly played it on her own
Yeah.
time, and that says a lot about somebody who hasn't expressed interest before in playing a golf game.
Yeah, and has no interest in golf as a sport,
Absolutely,
which I do. Like,
yeah.
I enjoy golf just in general, but not everyone does. It's not for everyone.
Absolutely, but I feel like Golf Story provides you with that adventure, that story content, that RPG.
That deep.
It's got
Deep.
a lot of depth, and it has a great exhibition mode, like I told you. So that also ties into, if you're looking for a couch co-op game, exhibition mode is great on Golf Story, but it's just hard to top just running a game of golf on Super Rush. Like you said, just picking your favorite Mario character. We could be biased to Mario, but even that aside, we said it before, it could be humanoid characters in the game play the way it plays, and it would still be the definitive multiplayer golf experience on the Switch.
I agree. As far as exhibition matches and just going to play 18 holes, it's the best there is.
And we've got quite a few game modes. So you could play your traditional golf or switch it up. I mean, Super Rush's big selling point was, speed golf, battle golf,
yeah.
these unique approaches to the game of golf. That some people might hate stroke play, but absolutely live for the speed golf.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a bit of a purist myself, but the game still hits for me. With that part of it.
I love me some stroke play. You know that. I mean, that's what we do.
Yep.
But it goes without saying, we've talked about this game so much, Tyler. It comes up so frequently. There's no way it wasn't going to be on here.
There is a game at number 5 that we surprisingly haven't talked about that much on the podcast, or at least not in a while.
Yeah, I feel like I talked about it, some early on, but haven't really delved into it too deep very often. That's Xenoblade Chronicles 2. We get a lot of fantastic RPGs on the Switch
these days.
Yes. Bravely Default 2, which unfortunately, that's also on Steam, along with Octopath Traveler. So these aren't exclusive. These can be experienced elsewhere. And we didn't mention, but also things like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Breath of the Wild, other platforms. We're talking exclusives here. So when we're talking exclusives, something like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 stands out to me big time because this is the way to play it, and it is absolutely fantastic. I mean, if you wanted to, if somebody said Breath of the Wild's off the table, I'm looking for an immersive 3D experience, but a little more heavy in the RPG element, this would be the absolute recommendation. It hits every key point. Amazing storytelling, excellent musical score. The combat is unique, addictive, and takes skill. We like turn-based RPGs. We love them.
Quite a bit.
But there's also something very enjoyable about having to put yourself at a vantage point and having specific abilities that are only viable depending on where you are in coordination to your target. That is what really stimulates me about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And it also just, a lot of times when we get a console, this was our early title for the Switch. You want games that show how deep and how far they can go with the
Absolutely.
hardware.
I feel like this is still one of the most graphically impressive games on the Switch.
Definitely. And
it came out 5 years ago.
Crazy.
Almost.
Yeah, almost 5 years. But Breath of the Wild and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 are those examples of showing how expansive a game can be on the hardware, which is incredibly expansive. So Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I've recommended it before. It's one of my favorite games. I should show it more love. I spent a lot of time putting into it, but I think I should put some more into it. The backlog, dude, you know the struggle.
It's brutal.
It's brutal.
Speaking of backlog, number 4 is a game with an infinite backlog. You could play this game for hundreds of hours and not scratch the surface of what is available to you because it's literally endless. And that's Super Mario Maker 2. Now, I was a big fan and an early adopter of the original Super Mario Maker for Wii U. I played that game quite a bit to the point where I believe it's probably the game that's still currently in my Wii U, interestingly.
While not owning a Wii U, I pre-ordered and got day of release Super Mario Maker 3DS.
Yep. So same energy, man. But Super Mario Maker 2, it's the definitive experience. Like, they added so many features, especially with the final update, that it's an entire Mario experience unto itself, and you don't have to set foot in the level builder. And I would actually recommend for anyone who gets the game brand new, who's never played Mario Maker, to play other people's levels quite a bit before you try and make your own. Get some inspiration.
Oh, the first thing I recommend doing when you get Super Mario Maker 2 is going and downloading some of the top-rated, interesting levels on the popular.
Yep.
I could go on and on. This really, I've thought about this, Tyler, and I know it's crazy, but I'm at a point where if somebody were to ask me, on a whim, what's the first thing I should get if I'm just looking to really sink some time and I like Mario.
I only have money for one Switch game.
Super Mario Maker 2. It's just, at this point, I mean, even at launch, it was incredible, but we've talked about the content that's rolled out throughout its span and until its end of updates, just kind of mind-blowing. There's a whole Zelda function. We can get into so much. The world creation.
Yep. The world creation is what interests me quite a bit.
Absolutely. It's an all-in-one Mario experience. If you like side-scrolling Marios, this is almost the last thing you ever need.
Absolutely. Because people have recreated entire other games within this Mario Maker engine.
Definitely.
Because there's so much you can do.
This is what made way for things like Game Builder Garage.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
They really, really hit this apex of online sharing. Something we're not really used to on the Switch or weren't used to beforehand. But they made it so accessible, especially with things like Reddit, where you can just go get codes, enter these codes, and then you're dropped into somebody's level they made. That right there.
I can text you a code of a level and say, go play this, and you can play it within 2 minutes.
And we did.
We did that. And I would be willing to do it again because I have this game digitally, which means to me I can pick it up and play it at any time. And that's what I love about this game. Yep. Is you can play it for 5 minutes or 5 hours, and it's never going to be any different in terms of the satisfaction you get.
No question, dude. Such a deserving game for the list. We highly advise picking up Super Mario Maker 2. I bet you can get it for a damn good price. $45 maximum these days.
Yeah, and that's a steal.
Absolutely.
Tell us about number 3, Sterling. It's a heavy hitter. I will say, numbers 3 through 1, and to some extent number 4, Mario Maker as well, like, this could be literally any order.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The number 3 is going to be Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, something that we speak
Talk
on
about every episode.
Yeah, I don't think it's any secret that this is on the list.
Yep. This is the reason to get a Switch. I mean, all 3 of these games at the top are good enough to warrant purchasing a Switch just for that game, or for the ability to play these 3 games, in my opinion.
Absolutely, even on their own merits, but just for Smash, particularly because it's Smash, and also because let's remember what it is at the end of the day, Tyler. It's a party game.
It is.
Yeah,
it's the best party game for me. I mean, that's what I've made use of it as my whole life.
Definitely. And you think about getting a Switch, and a lot of people have families. This is such a great game to get everyone in on. It's just so friendly. It wants you to play with more people.
Absolutely.
You know, we've developed this 1v1 mindset. But let's not forget that wasn't the original intention per se.
Absolutely. That's a great point, because even Sakurai himself, he's not actually a huge fan of the hyper competitive aspect of Smash.
Definitely.
He has more begrudgingly accepted it. But to him, it's a family game that's meant to be a party game with items on, stage deaths, and randomness, just like you would get in Mario Kart, say.
Definitely, because we could be as good at Mario Kart as we have ever been, but you can always get, blown to shit and put in second or third.
Absolutely.
No one's immune to it.
Correct.
So Smash Ultimate, dude, I mean, that is just such an obvious one. Like you said, this is the type of game that you get a Switch to play.
Yeah.
So
and I've said before on the podcast, this game being announced is the reason that I went out of my way to get a Switch.
Yes, that was the big push. So if you own a Switch, you should own Smash Ultimate.
Agreed. Number 2, same, literally the same. I mean, this game is the reason that a lot of people bought a Switch. Animal Crossing New Horizons. There's people I know that only own a Switch to play this game. And I think I actually talked about this maybe in the last podcast when we were talking about Animal Crossing, but this is a game for literally anybody. If you can read, this game is for you.
Definitely.
There's nothing punishing about the game. There's no feel bads. It's a bastion of positive energy, of wholesome interactions, and of just like compelling relationships with your town,
and of
right?
personalization. I mean, that's another one of the big things. I mean, they just give you the option to personalize everything.
Yep. To a degree that has not been present in other Animal Crossing games on such a deep level.
Not even close. I mean, before we were just, we were blown away by the furniture aspect, the clothing aspect. Now it's down to the point where you get an item, you can customize it to be one of 8 variants.
Yep. You can put it literally anywhere.
And you can put it anywhere. You can put it outside. We're about to see, ceiling decorations. We're about to see different wallpaper on each side of the wall.
That's awesome,
the
man.
Personalization is just it's amping up even as we speak. So it's just kind of crazy. Like,
yeah, the next update that's coming out next week, I mean, that's going to add infinite more customization.
That's going to be big news on 31.
Yep.
But yeah, Animal Crossing, dude. I mean, one of the defining things of Tyler and Sterling. And
no question.
I wanted to bring up an interesting point before we move on. I was reading some things. Now, we both have the expansion pack upgrade,
Mm-hmm.
and we have access to the DLC.
Correct.
Now, this is the interesting thing. If you were to halt your subscription, which I don't think either of us plan on doing,
you lose the DLC.
You don't lose the DLC, but you get to keep anything obtained from it. But you don't get to go back to the DLC area.
Yeah.
Now that really pushes me to want to purchase the DLC standalone.
Why is that?
It could be oddity, security. It's all digital. It's all in the void. Let's just be honest, Tyler. It's all here today and potentially gone tomorrow.
I agree.
But it's just a little strange being thinking about the idea of if the service, ever excluded it, that we would be excluded, for example. Now, that shouldn't muscle us into paying another $25. I'm probably not going to jump on that like I'm talking about.
I'm not.
But it's a thought. It certainly is a thought.
I think it's interesting, but it's not surprising to me. I mean, it's a subscription service, so when you lose this service, you lose what you're subscribing to.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that there would be two variations of a DLC, two different.
I agree.
Two different
I think
methods
that this is
of ownership.
Test. I think that this is a test rollout for more like this. I think that they'll be adding more DLCs to the expansion pack in the future. So this is kind of like their first foray into that.
Oh, I firmly believe that. I think we talked about it in a recent episode. That I think that definitely is the case. But Animal Crossing, we've talked about it. I mean, I think it made our number one 2020 game.
Yeah,
so
had
to see it here is no surprise.
Yep.
Our number one is the least of a surprise.
Correct. It's almost a default.
List. It is a default number one, and that is Super Mario Odyssey.
Yep. And there's not... I mean, we've talked about this game at length, obviously, and it's also in the cultural lexicon in a big way. But it's the prime example of a game that you should own if you own a Switch, period.
Absolutely. I mean, the first day I had my Switch, that's the first game I booted up, and nothing could have more properly let it sink in that I owned a Switch than playing Super Mario Odyssey. It really sets in. Because when you play Smash Ultimate, it doesn't sink in that you have a Switch. You're playing the new Smash game.
Yep.
But it's kind of like Smash 4 all over again. Super Mario Odyssey was a whole new thing. Galaxy being as great as it was, imagine how I felt even going in never playing the Galaxy games. I mean, I was blown away.
Yeah, definitely.
The control of Mario, the potential to just parkour and go absolutely ballistic.
Yep, and go anywhere that you can see.
On top of every single hair of Mario's mustache being rendered. I mean, it's just such a beautiful game. With such inventive locations.
Definitely.
There's just so much to say about it. It's just every Switch should come bundled with Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, I agree, man. Pick it up if you don't have it.
You should have it.
You should have it.
If you listen to the Star Road podcast, man, if you know what Star Road is, you should have Odyssey.